Okay. Hey, this is Amanda Pyatt Bush here. So we're on our third video for Noah's Ark. And we're going to take a look at chapter 8. But before we do that, I'm going to kind of slow this down a little bit. So one of the things, when I read from the New International Version, it gave us the feet of how big the boat was, remember? Well, I want to read from you the cubits because we're going to do something really cool with the cubits. I'm going to show you how the cubit numbers actually have a little hidden message in there about the story of Noah's Ark and how it actually ties into Christ as our Savior. So we're going to look at that. So the first thing we got to do is we got to go backwards. Now, I am actually going to be in the King James Version this time because the King James Version is going to give us the actual cubits. They just have that writing in there, so it works great. So you want to go to chapter 6 of Genesis. Chapter 6, verse 15 is what's going to tell us what the size is in cubits, okay? And so this is the fashion which thou shalt make of it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits. The breadth, the width of it, 50 cubits, and the height of it, 30 cubits. And then it says that it shall have 3 layers, lower, second, and third stories. In verse 16, thou shalt make it. So now we know how big this thing is in cubits. We read it in feet, which I think is great for trying to understand. It's about the size of a football field, probably a little bit bigger actually. Cubits can be anywhere between 18 and 25 inches long. Okay, so they're over a foot. Oftentimes, maybe sometimes interpreted as much as a 2 foot. Okay, that's kind of what we're looking at for a cubit. But for the purpose of what I want to do with you here real quick is I want to show you Christ in the actual size of the boat, which totally blows my mind. Whenever I was looking through this, I thought, you know what, it would be a 45-day study at 15 minutes a pop just to try to look into each and everything in here. So what I want to do is I want to get you little tastes of how cool it is to look into both the numbers and the words and do studies on them to where you can see the hidden meaning. And my purpose in doing that is to hopefully get your mind going in the idea of you doing it yourself someday. So let's look at just this. Let's look at those heights, the width, the breadth, and the height, and also the length, okay? So let's just look at that real quick. First of all, I have to preface, in case you haven't seen some of the other videos, and I'm real short whenever I talk about this anyway, so I want you to understand, we have our big chart here, and in the Hebrew, and everything in the Hebrew goes this way, okay? So whenever I show you things on this particular chart, I'm going to show you in the way that it would be read, technically, okay? And so here we have the Aleph, and then we have the Bet, Gimel, and these are the actual individual characters or letters of the Hebrew alphabet, okay? And that's where we get our word, it's Aleph Bet, they're Aleph Bet, so you can kind of see where that comes from. That's kind of neat to see the history in that. But with each actual letter, or symbol, it also has a number value assigned to it. And so we can see hidden meaning in numbers as well as the actual individual characters. So we looked at the word ark, we broke those characters down, looked at what the inner meaning is and all of that. Now what I want to do is I want to break down these actual numbers in the Bible that tell us like how big the boat was, okay? And what's cool is I promise you, it's going to blow your mind. You're going to see Jesus. You're going to see Jesus in the actual size of the ark, okay? I keep calling it a boat. It's really more like a barge. So when I say boat, I mean barge. So just go with me. I've been taught my whole life it was a boat, and so that's what I just always thought, right? It's fun how we can learn and grow and get smarter and smarter, or we grow in wisdom, right, as we look into God's word. So you can see that the Aleph is also a 1. The Bet is a 2. And so we see, whenever you see 1, oftentimes whenever you're working with gematria, you are thinking about God or the ox, the head, the strongness of God. And so this works with all number systems, okay? And so I'm going to show you the numbers of the ark, which are 300, 50, and 30. Remember, that's what we read here from our King James. So I went ahead and put it all out on a board to make it a little easier. And I'm going to move these things aside so that you can kind of see here. You'll see the 30, the 50, the 300, the 50, and the 30. And then we also have the 3 levels of the boat, and that actually has some symbolism in it as well. And so we want to look at that too. Okay, so first of all, we have to look at the 300. Okay, 300 is the same as the sheen. And if you've been with me before, you know the sheen kind of looks like a W here, or like teeth. The original script, the original symbol of sheen would have been teeth. And so we get this idea of destruction, but like a destruction to rebuild, okay? It also has hidden in its meaning justice, mercy, and then compassion, and then basically between justice, righteousness, good, solid, right, and mercy and compassion, because if we're good, solid, right, we know we're going to make mistakes. And so we have this justice on one side and this mercy and compassion on the other side, and then we have this middle that balances the two out, because God is a God of both, okay? So we see this whole thing, this destruction, this peace, this justice and mercy and compassion. Then we see it is oftentimes referred directly to this idea of divinity, a divinely, appointed time, something very specific. Okay, so we know that the flood it happened at a very specific time. All of our times are blocked out. And if we took the time, I probably won't do this for you, or I'll never get through the whole Bible, but you can go back and you can look at each individual time period that Noah was doing certain things, and you can see exactly how everything lays out. There's a lot of 7s in there, which is a very prominent number when we're talking about a perfection of God. Okay, so we have a divinely appointed time, and then we have the children of promise, and then we have Jesus being compared to this, because just like there was a destruction to rebuild of humanity, right, there also is this idea of Jesus' body being broken for us. And so oftentimes when we think about the sheen, we think about that Jesus's body being broken and he rebuilding it through the resurrection. Okay, and so we see this very thing happening, okay? All right, so then we have the 50, which is also the noon, okay? 50 means fish. Now, if you remember, if you're very familiar with the New Testament, Jesus referred to people as being fish whenever he said, "I will make you fishers of men," he says in Matthew. And so we have this idea of fish or men. Then we have, it also means son, or like an heir to something. It means faithfulness, and it also means completion. And so we see Jesus all over this. He was the son, heir of God. He was faithful to a cross. He wants to save the fish, and he is the reason why we are complete. Through his death on a cross, we have the access to righteousness. He covers our sin. He completes us, okay? He makes us full. He also paid the price for us. Do you see how Jesus is embedded in all of the Old Testament. He's embedded in all of the Hebrew language. And so you see him everywhere you go, and you see this very specifically. So you think about, what is it that the boat was saving? Men. What was the boat representing? The son, or the heir of God. And this is representing the actual height, I believe. No, 50 would be the width, okay, of the boat. So then we go to 30. And if this is not blowing your mind yet, I just don't even know what will. But 30 is the Lamed, okay? This is the coolest one. This is where you see Jesus just right in your face. You can't even hardly get away from it. The Lamed is the staff, or the goad. This is the thing that protects and controls the sheep. Jesus said himself, the people need a shepherd. Jesus is their shepherd. Jesus is our shepherd. And not only is he a shepherd, a good shepherd, but he is a shepherd that laid his life down for the sheep. Just like this boat these dimensions of this boat, this very barge, this ark that God had put for Noah and the animals to be saved on, it protected them. It kept control, and it also allowed for a renewing, okay? And so you see that right there. You see Jesus, he's in the very dimensions of the barge. I mean, how, that is just so cool. Okay, so then you have the 3 levels. I love this. I love the 3 levels. The 3 levels are what? It is the holding area for everything. For the food, the provisions. Remember, God said to Noah, go make provisions, get 2 of every animal. Then he had different numbers for the clean animals, and he had all these numbers. And he said, put all of these animals on here, and I need you to put them in these 3 levels. The 3 levels absolutely represent the holding tank of all of that, of the humanity, of the animals for Noah. And remember, God made everything that was living. He gave man, he gave Adam, which means man, red man. He gave him dominion over everything. Those animals were put on that barge for our good purposes. That food was put on the barge for our good purposes, okay? It was for us that he did that. So look at this. 3 levels. 3 is also the Gimel. And the Gimel literally means camel, okay? It is the load barrier. How cool is that? The 3 levels, there are 3 levels, and they are to be the load bearer of all the things, okay? Also, it was the servant of man. It carried our junk. And with that, I want to leave you with this. Jesus himself went on a cross to carry our burden. And he said himself, he says, my burden is light and gentle and kind. And if we yoke with him, that our burden would be light. If we partner with him, he is literally a servant to man. If that doesn't humble you, I just don't even know what can humble you. And what I'm telling you, people, is that these very things are in the measurements, the very measurements of the ark. And so you'll notice as we move along in this little journey, more and more we see that the ark is a type for Jesus Christ, who saves us too. All right, we'll come back with chapter 8 because we obviously didn't get to it here in just a little bit. So check out the next video.